All right, so we're diving into global economy predictions today. And you guys sent us some really interesting stuff. This interview with Krzysztof Tchaikovsky,
Oh, yeah.
a Polish clairvoyant. And, well, his outlook for 2025, I got to say, it's pretty intriguing stuff.
Yeah, he brought
Especially this
something.
concept of a matrix influencing everything.
Yeah, it's a thought-provoking interview for sure. What really got me is how he connects his economic predictions to, like a deeper critique of human behavior.
Hmm.
Specifically how we tend towards speculation.
Yeah, I noticed that too. Like, at first I thought, oh, he's just talking about the stock market.
Right.
But it seems like he's using speculation like in a much broader sense. What do you think he means there?
Well, he's arguing that this constant desire for more money, more possessions, more status even,
Right.
he thinks that's at the root of a lot of problems. And not just in the financial markets, but in our personal lives too.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. He says this desire fuels a system of speculation. And that affects everything, from government policies to the choices we make every day.
So it's kind of like that example he uses in the interview, that wild example about a tax on rainfall.
Exactly. Yeah. He talks about this hypothetical scenario where governments start taxing people based on how much rain falls on their property,
Okay.
which is, on the face of it, it's absurd.
Right.
But it really highlights how governments are always, looking for new ways to extract money from citizens. And they do it often through these policies that just feel totally out of touch with people's everyday lives.
I could see that. I mean, think about it on a personal level. We're constantly bombarded with ads and messages telling us, we need to buy the latest gadgets, wear the trendiest clothes, live in the biggest house,
Yeah.
even if it means going into debt or sacrificing our well-being.
Precisely. And you see this playing out on a global scale too, right? Like speculative bubbles in the housing market.
Oh, for sure.
The stock market, it's this never-ending cycle of wanting more and more and more, which, can ultimately lead to instability,
Yeah.
even collapse.
Okay. So how does all of this speculation, this desire for more, how does that tie into Joukowsky's predictions for the global economy, especially for 2025?
Yeah.
Because he does mention something about the BRICS nations, right?
He does, yeah.
Mm.
He predicts that in April 2025, the BRICS nations, so that's Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, they're going to make a major announcement about their own currency.
Okay.
And he believes this is going to be like a direct challenge to the dominance of the US dollar and could even trigger a global currency war.
Whoa, a currency war. That sounds intense. What would that even look like?
Well, imagine, a world where countries are constantly trying to devalue their own currencies to gain an advantage in international trade.
Oh.
It could lead to massive volatility in the markets, affecting everything from the prices of goods and services to the value of our savings, even our investments.
So this isn't just like some abstract economic theory. This could have a real impact on people's lives.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if Joukowsky's right and the BRICS nations do make a move to challenge the dollar, we could be in for a period of serious economic uncertainty.
Okay, so we've got this backdrop of speculation driving everything, a potential currency war brewing,
Yeah.
and now Joukowsky throws in this whole matrix concept.
Right.
What is that all about?
So this is where things get really interesting.
Okay.
Joukowsky argues that technology, social media, and this constant pressure to succeed, it's all created a kind of virtual reality, and it's disconnecting us from real human experiences, real relationships.
So not the Matrix like from the movie with Keanu Reeves.
No, not quite like that.
Okay.
This is more about the invisible forces that are shaping our perceptions and behaviors, often without us even realizing it.
Huh?
He believes we're becoming increasingly trapped in this matrix, losing touch with what truly matters.
Yeah. He uses this really powerful story in the interview about a conversation he had with a man who was battling a serious illness. What was it about that story that really stuck with you?
It was just a reminder that all the material possessions, all the achievements we strive for can seem pretty insignificant in the face of our own mortality.
Right.
Joukowsky was really affected by this man's realization that what truly mattered were the human connections he had made throughout his life.
Wow. That definitely puts things in perspective.
Yeah.
So what does this matrix have to do with the economic predictions we were just discussing? Are they connected somehow?
That's what we're going to explore next.
Yeah.
Because Joukowsky seems to be suggesting that this trap of the matrix and the economic systems we've created are actually two sides of the same coin.
So we were just talking about this matrix idea
Hmm.
and how it might be connected to the global economy. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, remember how we were talking about speculation being at the heart of things? Tchaikovsky seems to be saying that this constant pursuit of more money, possessions, even status, that's actually what keeps us trapped in this matrix.
So it's not just technology and social media.
Yeah.
It's also about our economic systems
Yeah.
and how they encourage this kind of like endless striving.
Exactly. He sees this desire for more as the fuel, the fuel that keeps the matrix running. And this ties back to his prediction about the BRICS nations challenging the dollar. It's
Hmm.
like he views that as a potential breaking point, a moment where the old economic system, which is driven by this insatiable desire, might finally start to crumble.
Okay, but let's play devil's advocate for a second.
Okay.
What if this matrix isn't some like evil force trying to control us?
Right.
What if it's just like a natural evolution of human
Huh.
progress? I mean, technology has brought us so many advancements, and our economic systems, I mean, they've lifted millions of people out of poverty.
That's true. And Joukowsky does acknowledge that. There are positive aspects to these systems. He's not
Yeah.
saying, let's go back to the Stone Age or anything.
Right.
But he is urging us to be mindful of the potential downsides, to really consider whether we're truly in control of these systems or if they're controlling us. He uses this rather stark phrase in the interview, socially dying.
Oh, yeah, that one really stuck with me too.
Yeah.
How do you interpret that?
Well, I think it highlights the potential for isolation and disconnection that comes with this digital age. I mean, we might have thousands of online connections, but are we truly connecting on a human level? Are we losing the ability to build, those meaningful relationships in the real world?
Yeah, it's almost like we're living in these parallel universes. Our online lives are vibrant and active, but our real world lives are becoming like increasingly isolated.
Right.
And maybe, just maybe, that isolation makes us more susceptible to the manipulations of this matrix, whether it's through targeted advertising or even political propaganda.
That's a really insightful connection, and it gets to the heart of Tchaikovsky's warning. He's not saying that technology is inherently bad, but he's cautioning us against letting it become a substitute for genuine human connection. He even brings up artificial intelligence as a potential amplifier of this trend.
Right, that's a whole other layer to this matrix, isn't it? This idea that we could become so reliant on AI that we lose the ability to connect with each other on a human level.
Exactly. I mean, if we can have all of our needs met by machines, what happens to our need for human connection? Do we become so accustomed to interacting with algorithms that we just forget how to relate to other human beings?
It's a bit of a dystopian vision, but I can see how it could happen. I mean, we're already seeing signs of this, right? People forming deep attachments to their virtual assistants, spending hours interacting with chatbots.
It's true.
And it makes you wonder, if we're already so willing to connect with machines, how much easier will it be to disconnect from each other?
That's a chilling thought. And it brings us back to Joukowsky's central point. We need to be conscious of the systems we're creating and the impact they're having on us, both individually and collectively. So how do we break free from this matrix? What's the antidote to all this speculation and isolation?
That's the million-dollar question. Does Joukowsky offer any solutions?
Well, he doesn't offer any easy answers, but he seems to suggest that the solution lies in reclaiming our humanity, prioritizing genuine connection, valuing experiences over possessions, remembering that we're more than just consumers or data points. He uses this very simple phrase, living life.
Living life. It sounds so basic, yet it feels incredibly profound in this context.
I think that's the point. It's a call to wake up from this trance of the matrix and to start living more intentionally, more authentically. It's about being present in our own lives, connecting with the people around us, and finding meaning outside of the digital world.
So, what does all of this mean for you, the listener? Here you are trying to make sense of the world, and you sent us this interview with a clairvoyant who's talking about economic upheaval, currency wars, and a matrix that's trapping us all. It's a lot to take in.
It is, but I think there's a powerful message here, even if we take, Joukowsky's predictions with a grain of salt. He's challenging us to think critically about the systems that we're part of and the choices we make every day. Are we contributing to a world that's driven by speculation and isolation, or are we actively working to create something different, something more human?
Those are big questions,
Yeah.
and I don't think there's a single right answer, but it's a conversation worth having, especially as we head into a future that feels increasingly uncertain. Speaking of unexpected turns, Joukowsky mentions how he got into this whole clairvoyance thing in the first place.
Oh, right. He talks about having a near-death experience.
Exactly. He says this experience completely changed his outlook on life and opened him up to these, intuitive abilities, which I guess is a reminder that sometimes the most profound insights come from the most unexpected places.
It also speaks to this idea of breaking free from the matrix, right? Maybe this near-death experience helped him see the world from a different perspective, outside of the usual constraints of our everyday reality. And maybe that's what allows him to make these predictions, to see things that others can't.
It's definitely food for thought. And who knows, maybe there's something to this whole clairvoyance thing after all.
Well, we'll have to wait and see what 2025 brings.
I guess we will. But in the meantime, I think we've given our listener plenty to ponder. So let's move on to the final part of this deep dive, where we'll explore some of the potential consequences of Joukowsky's predictions and how we can navigate these uncertain times.
It's funny how a conversation about, like, global economics can lead us to near-death experiences, but I guess that's the nature of these deep dives, huh?
Yeah, I guess so. You never know where you'll end up. That's the beauty of it.
Right.
It's all connected, the personal, the economic, the philosophical. And
Yeah.
Joukowsky, he's trying to make sense of it all in his own way.
Yeah, he doesn't shy away from the big questions, that's for sure.
No, he doesn't.
And, whether or not you agree with his predictions, there's something, I don't know, refreshing about his willingness to challenge, conventional thinking.
Absolutely. He even touches on the potential for, like, global conflict, which is a pretty sobering thought,
Yeah.
to say the least. He seems to see this conflict, arising from the same forces that are driving that economic instability, that insatiable hunger for more, that willingness to exploit others for personal gain.
It's a bleak picture, but unfortunately not entirely unrealistic. We've seen it throughout history how greed and the pursuit of power can lead to conflict and suffering.
Yeah, and Joukowsky seems to believe that we're approaching, like, a tipping point, a moment where these forces could really come to a head. He even refers to 2025 as a cursed year for the world.
Yeah.
Not exactly the most optimistic outlook.
No, not really. But it's important to remember that, Joukowsky is just one voice offering one perspective. His predictions aren't set in stone. They're more like, I don't know, like signposts,
Yeah.
pointing us toward potential challenges and opportunities.
So what do we do with this information? How do we prepare for a future that feels so uncertain, so volatile?
I think it comes back to that idea of reclaiming our humanity, focusing on what truly matters, our relationships, our communities, our connection to something larger than ourselves, and being mindful of the choices we make each day, both big and small.
He talks about the importance of simple things, a smile, a touch, a genuine conversation. It's a good reminder that in the midst of all this chaos and uncertainty, there's still beauty to be found, still connections to be made.
And perhaps that's the most important takeaway from this whole deep dive. It's not about panicking or giving into fear. It's about using this information to, to make more conscious choices, to live more intentionally, and to build a future that's more aligned with our values.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Joukowsky's predictions, I think the key takeaway is this. Whether or not you believe in his clairvoyant abilities, he's offering this powerful reminder that we have a choice. We can choose to be swept along by the currents of this matrix, or we can actively work to create a different future, a future that's, more humane, more sustainable, more connected.
And ultimately, I think that's what makes this deep dive so compelling. It's not just about predicting the future. It's about empowering us to shape it.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that even amidst all this uncertainty and potential chaos, we still have the power to choose our path, to create a world that reflects our values. And perhaps that's the most hopeful message of all.